Yeah, that's happened. Yes.
Right,
The
started.
recorder started. Yeah.
Yeah. So hello, everybody. Maybe right now when I speak, you could put yourself onto close your audio, please, onto mute. That would be helpful. But I would be really grateful if I could see your faces. If it's possible, I would be really grateful. I find it really hard to talk to a screen, just lots of black faces. If you could let me see your faces, that would be nice for me. Hello, my name is Sarah Kingham. I'm delighted to be invited by Zainab to share something that's incredibly important to me, and that is everything that happens to children. So I've spent my working life as a teacher and an early years educator. I've been an advisor for 20 years, looking at helping 0 to 5, from children from birth to their 5th birthday. And although I'm trained to work with children up to 11, I have spent my favourite ages really are children under the ages of 6. And it's where I have lots and lots of knowledge. So what I thought I would do is share a little a PowerPoint I've put together, just a small one here. So I'm not sure where I've put it. Is it there? Here we have it. Let's try and get into here and do this. And I've got to get it to the beginning now. Forgive me here. Oh dear. Can't seem to get rid of that. Here we are. So, my name is Sarah Kingham. My passion is, as I said to you, is children. And one of the things that I want to share with you during this little session that I'm going to give you is little bits of information that to me are really important, because I think that if I share with you things, you get some information about the young children under 6 that you may be able to take away and understand that I do have a little bit of knowledge about these children. One of the things that I have the opportunity of doing in my career is spending times in British government meetings talking about what this is, which is the single most important time of life, is from when a woman conceives her baby until the baby's 2nd birthday. And this is the time that the most changes ever happen to a human being. So it's these days that are significantly important in a vast arrays of all of life. So we talk about life and we put lots of priorities on what happens later, but the first 1001 days are the single most important time of a human's life. And I want to share with you a little bit about what's going on in the brain of a baby. And it grows exponentially. It's changing all the time. The baby is growing from this tiny little seed to a little toddler who can run around in 1001 days. So it's an unbelievable time. But one of the things that I'm really truly concerned about, and which is why I'm going to share with you what I've put together and what I care about, is that technology now is taking over the lives of so many people, that the human brain that is developing exponentially in this time of life is being compromised a little bit because of technology. So parents have an addiction to their own phones because these things are everywhere, aren't they? We all have them. And if we spend too much time on there, the toddler doesn't get what they need from us at the beginning of life. It will have a consequence for later. And then I want to share with you the importance of not giving screens to children under 2, not giving them any form of technology. What those children need are interactions with human beings, with us, with mothers, with fathers, with family. We need to be with our children, and that's what enables this amazing computer inside the brain of a baby to grow and flourish and be the children and the adults that we want them to be when they grow up, with strong levels of mental resilience. This is called attachment. When you are close to a little baby and the baby has every confidence that all of their needs will be met, we call that attachment. And attachment, when it doesn't work, causes lots of problems later. And so I have put together what's important to me, which is a website. Here you can see it's called sarahkingham.org. Please do write it down. Supporting children's wellbeing in the digital age. And what I'm going to do is just give you a little visit to my website. It's not perfect, forgive me, it's there. There are still things that need to be done on it. So if I try and show you it from a different perspective. Oh dear. Just forgive me. Let's see if I can. Here we have it. Here's the website. So you can see here's supporting children's wellbeing in the digital age. There's ways of getting in touch. It's helping websites helping professionals, parents, and carers raise and educate young children. And what my belief is now that we need to look at, and I think is compromised a lot with, unfortunately, technology, is that children, in order to thrive and be happy and resilient and grow up confident, they need that to occur when they are feeling their parents and their professionals are present in the current moment and giving to them what they need. So one of the things that I want to suggest is that I'm going to be offering training courses on things that I've created in my life. So here you have here on the left here, Read It Too. I created this in 2012, following having spent many, many years watching children struggle with learning to read. And it's a program that this has gone across the world. So although it's not currently in Egypt, I'm aware of, other countries across the world apply it. Doesn't matter what language you speak. It's a reading program based on an attachment model where one adult sits with with a child every day, reads a collection of books, small books, very short, and only say 3 or 4 over a period of a year. And what you do is you read them so many times to children that children can sing them back to you. And I teach you in this program, and if I do I'm going to intend to do some short training courses on how you could deliver that as a parent at home, how you could ensure that your child, whatever their challenge is, was able through repetition to find a love of reading and story. Because when children love reading and want to do it, learning to read becomes easy. So if you're concerned about that, there's I have got a YouTube channel where you can see what people who've called Read It Too down there. People have done and what schools have found interesting and useful. I then have a Stories with Sarah YouTube channel where you can, if you're interested, see me reading lots of different stories to children and having lots of little ideas of things to do with young children, bookmaking and scribing children's voice and asking philosophical questions. And again, I can put together and intend to do so some little training courses on for you to explore things yourselves, how you can read with children to inspire children to want to read more, to be curious, to be excited. So, when we read and share books with children, it's not only about just reading the words on a page. It is a far bigger thing than that. It's ensuring you develop children's vocabulary. It's ensuring that you get them to participate in the process. And that is called dialogic reading. And one of my intentions is through Zainab again is to do some little courses on how to read dialogically with children so that children actually engage in the process and start to really know that reading is something they want to participate in. And then I created discovery packs during lockdown where I put together lots of little things from around the home. And if you like, I created, based on my 40 years plus in education, an approach to teaching that maybe today's children need more than they've ever needed. And that is to play, think, and learn with curiosity using everyday things. So, how can you help your child to be curious and want to learn using things you've got at home? What kind of language can you use? What kind of questions can you ask? What kind of ways can you do it? Some very simple, lovely little activities. I will share loads and loads of ideas of things you can do with children. And then finally, my other activities are just lots of different things that I do practically that maybe won't be so applicable for you in Egypt. So as you can see here, my website explains things to do, how we can develop children's creativity, because it's the antidote to stress. How, for me, it's really important we get children laughing. So when you're with me on a course, you will always have an opportunity to try and laugh, because laughter is great, isn't it? And here's an example of a question. You might say to a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, do you think the C gets cross? Do you think the C gets cross? Anyone got any answers? Unmute yourselves, please. Does anyone think the C gets cross? Yes or no? I'm waiting. No one's unmuting themselves. Right, Ebdal, off you go. Do you think the C gets
It's difficult. It's difficult question. Yeah.
So Ebta, now I'm going to tell you it's not a difficult question. It is a question that requires a different part of your brain to be used. And if you're not used to using it, it becomes difficult. So for young children under the age of 6, there are no ends to the possibility of thinking that they have. And that's what excites me. Okay, so I am a bit eccentric, and I go around and I talk to random children in the road, in the street, when I go anywhere, and I just say, excuse me, to their parents, but I've got a very important question to ask your child. And I'll say to a child, do you think the sea gets cross? And children look at me like I've got a funny face. And then I say, actually, I think they can get cross. I say, sometimes the sea is so flat, it's really calm. And other times the waves are crashing onto the beach. And sometimes I think that means they're getting cross. Do you? And then the children will go, yeah, I do. I think that.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's good. So then you can ask them, and maybe you don't see many clouds, but you can say, do you think clouds cry? When you ask a child that, the average 4-year-old will say, yes, they do, because rain comes out of it. And then you can develop more questions and you can ask them, so do you think they ever get cross before it cries? You know, sometimes when you're really angry and you're shouting and you're screaming and you're so furious, it's like red anger comes out of you. Isn't that a bit like thunder and lightning? And then suddenly the tears come. Remember how frustrated you are? Do you think that happens? But what you're doing is with children, when you ask questions like these kind of questions, what is right? When you ask a child, is this cup made of china? There's one answer, yes or no.
Mm.
Doesn't develop creative thinking. It doesn't allow children to be the problem solvers of the future. So I will be leading a course on how to bring joy, laughter, and positivity and high levels of well-being, and ensuring that all children can create and have their voice heard. I will share things like that with you. And I'm a passionate advocate for taking screens away and helping children have more joyous lives. So if you take one thing from me today, it's this: screen overexposure doesn't develop children to be thriving adults. It develops them to understand a reality that is not real. It's not the reality of living at home. It's the reality of something that doesn't exist. And what we need to do is, there's evidence now, this is really shocking, if you see down the middle of the screen there, that I have at my fingertips maybe 30 reports. These reports were written 6 years ago. One came out just this year. Screen overexposure develops autistic-like symptoms. If any of you know children that have been diagnosed with autism, the very first thing you should think about doing is removing every screen from the house. Everything, the television, your phone, that not giving children anything with flashing lights. All of these things. This is a big problem for our community, for society. So I've got a lot of little things here. You can learn about me. If you speak sufficient English, you'll see down here, there's lots of things about my life, my background, jobs I've done, my work with educational professionals, my work with parents. I'm a Walden therapist, think tanks, my international work. I'm currently working in Kuwait. I've got lots of work coming up in Hong Kong. I'm going over there in 2 weeks' time. They've asked me to go and do some work on the same subjects over there. I do volunteering. I try and help children. There's a book I wrote about a London bus many years ago. And I champion storytelling. I think stories and reading are the single best things you can do with children. And if you can't read, and families you know can't read, then what you need to try, we need to develop across the world, is revisiting how language and stories were told. We need to get families sitting in circles with a candle in the room, holding a special object and passing it around so everybody speaks and tells stories to each other. So there's no reason not to develop the oral tradition. Stories are wonderful things we need to be doing. So I've posted videos on my Read It Too channel and also on my Stories with Sarah channel. So you can, lots of things there. I'm going to go back now to my PowerPoint because that's where I was up to. And so here, if you want to contact me independently, please, if you work in an organization that would like me to deliver training for you, I would be delighted to so do as well. So there's my website, it's my contact details. But just quick, I'm going to just go back to, why do we think And why do I care so much? Well, I've been working with children for over 40 years, and I care so much because what I've seen, particularly since lockdown, is that when I trained as a teacher, I was trained to teach children. I was trained to somehow be able to stand up and sit down next to children, provide lovely resources, ask them questions, encourage them to think. But today, more and more screens are used to teach children. There are schools in Britain, not everywhere, where every single lesson is done through a PowerPoint from children age 4 upwards. And to me, this is so awful, I can't tell you. Because the changes in the classrooms mean that children are not learning how they need to learn. And what we know about children's development is they learn through movement. And sometimes the children who struggle, who've got autistic spectrum or autism or developmental delay, some of the reasons they've got that is they didn't move enough when they were tiny. So when they were babies, at that moment when they needed no technology, but lots of adult input, lots of adult talking to them, taking them outside, walking with them, making them reach for things, throw things, catch things, touch things. When they didn't have sufficient of that, they were sitting like this. Their bodies didn't activate the parts of the brain because the body and the brain are interlinked. You can't separate them. You can't say, just come and do this instead of doing that. So what's happened is we're seeing changes in children, less physical activity, and because technology that has so many dangers attached to it, technology is creating shorter attention spans in them, and they're experiencing less play. We need to get away from, and all of us across the world need to do this, giving children devices because that shuts them up and keeps them quiet. You know, you can. So I'm absolutely an advocate for helping families know how to spend 10 minutes in the kitchen with a wooden spoon and 2 saucepans and a metal spoon, and letting children make noise on the kitchen floor when they are 15 months old, 18 months old too, banging things about where adults sit down and do it with them. So instead of having the child on the technological device when the mother's preparing food, the child is playing in the kitchen. And as they grow up, they now get used to being next to mum in the kitchen. So mum can put them on a stool and she can help them to start chopping vegetables just gently with a blunt knife. But some of the things that children can do, children have the capacity to do just so much, and we often don't allow them to do it. Just as an example, in 1996, my children were young. You couldn't keep them out of the garden. They were always wanting to be outside. 5 years ago, you're trying to pull them outside. But now they don't go anywhere. Since COVID, it seems that everybody thinks that life is on a screen, but it isn't. I'm going to share with you some of the big dangers of letting your child have screen overexposure. But when I deliver training, I will also explain to you why we have to go back to what children need, which is all parts of their physical body being accessed and used. We need to empower them and give them what their bodies require. They haven't changed just because AI has come in. They haven't changed because we all have phones. Children still require us to allow them to pick things up, to stretch, to move, to throw balls, to cross their midline. That's what children require. But societal changes have now increased the number of children diagnosed with some form of developmental delay, whether it's autistic spectrum or what it is. But this is correlated with an increase in the amount of time children spend on screens and in the amount of time parents spend on screens. It wasn't long ago, about 2018, when there was a big study done. It was called technoference. And I will explain in more detail about that study later. But this study shows that the more parents spend on their own screens, the more addictive that they become to them, the more children stop bothering to ask their parents for attention and they go into themselves. And it's going into themselves that means that they then don't respond when we want them to, because screens work faster on the inner parts of the brain than we can communicate with our faces. So even though I'm quite a person who moves her face a lot and uses my hands when I talk, even I would struggle for a child that spent all their time on screens to get that child to want to look at me. Why should they bother looking at a face of a human that then the minute they look at that face, they switch their face to go over here quickly to look at a notification. Why would a child carry on? Some children don't. And then we say in speech marks they have autism. Often they don't. And when you take it away, the screens, and you reintroduce things you can do with children, and you help them to connect both sides of their brain, and you take them back to some of those baby movements that they missed, you see the children unraveling and coming back and coming alive. So just so you know a little bit about me, you don't think, who is this mad woman? I'm Sarah Kingham. I've given you this picture in case you can't really see me as we're looking at the PowerPoint. I've spent 40 years in British education. I'm the mother of 3 children. I'm a qualified teacher. I've been an early years advisor for the last 20 plus years. So that job has enabled me to go into schools and early years settings from children from babies to 6, morning and afternoon, seeing children, talking to teachers, helping them improve their practice. I've had a lot of experience. I've seen a lot of children, and it was due to that, plus the fact when I studied for my master's, I also was an English advisor, which meant I went in and helped people, schools again, and teachers and head teachers understand how to teach reading and writing and how to develop children's spoken word. And it was because of that that I founded Read It Too. I noticed that my own children were all very chatty, and that I taught them to read. I didn't actually do anything, if I'm honest. I just intuitively spoke about books, followed their intuition when they shared things with me. And I realized that actually lots of children from the most disadvantaged backgrounds who've got so many challenges can become successful at reading if we give them the right opportunities. So I founded a reading program 12 years ago, and it launched, and now there's thousands and thousands of children across Britain who are now applying this. They love to read because of it. So if you come on the module we're going to do, me and Zainab, on reading, I'll hand you some of my little handouts, how to read with your children. I can show you some strategies on important things about the things you need to do to help children, things you need to point out when you're looking at stories. If you're interested and you want some handouts on understanding more of it, please email me and I'll attach them in an attachment for you. I don't know how many of you know Zainab, but Zainab and I met because Zainab and I are both Walden therapists. And what Geoffrey Walden believes is that lots and lots of children who have not had the movements necessary in the first few months and those first 2 years of life, because of things that were going on in their brains, have to have that all humans, in order to function, have to have the brain activated through movement. And even though it can take a long time to get there, we can help all children, whatever their disability, to access some levels of independence by the time they're adults. And I know that Zainab, you would say that was correct. I guess that's a little summary of Geoffrey Walden's work, isn't it?
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Sarah, for today.
I haven't finished. I haven't finished, Zainab. I'm not finished.
Okay.
I'm a campaigner for less screen time. I'm a published author. I co-wrote the curriculum for kindergarten curriculum for the government of the United Arab Emirates, and I'm a trainer and a speaker. But I want to leave you with 2 other things. I want you to take away today something to think about. How much time do you estimate your children spend looking at screens? On tablets, on parents' phones, on the TV, on game consoles, and then also, some of them, older children, how much time do they have whiteboards in school? Because when you pull that away from them, you raise their cortisol. And cortisol is a hormone that pumps around the human body that is there to keep you safe. It's there for the fight or flight mechanism. But it's raised continually when there's too much tech and the attachment to their parents is not there. So here's a statistic that was published in March 2024. Screen time robs the average toddler of hearing 1,000 words spoken by an adult a day. So we know that screen time, this is now researched, current research this year, has a massive impact on children's development. We need an adequate balance. And I leave you by saying, how will you share the information you've learned from me today? And I hope I get the opportunity of meeting you sometime in the future. with Zainab. Let's stop that screen share. Stop screen share. And we come back. And I hope that you've enjoyed learning a little bit about me, and maybe you'd like to attend some training that Zainab and I are going to work on together.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much, Dr. Sarah, for today. It is really rich sessions with a lot of information. Thank you so much.